I mean, the problem with inflammation is it shuts off muscle growth. It basically tells your body you're in a stress state, so it's not a building state.
Mm. So when inflammation goes up, so does cortisol. And that's a
Exactly.
solid state for the body and the
Exactly.
exact opposite of what we want.
Exactly.
So when inflammation goes up, so does cortisol. Where should inflammation be? What should we check? I'm going to show you what to do in this video. And this one is going to show you how to keep your energy pathways turning 24/7. And that is huge. If you want to drip off the body fat, pack on the muscle, you want to have optimal testosterone, you want to kick ass in life, we have to pay attention to these hardworking scientists like my advisor, Dr. J, 5-year PhD in hormones. Now, as you can see there, it's a fucking mess. If you've got inflammation, it's going to shut down testosterone production and it's going to contribute to your ball sack getting smaller. Hypo goddamn gonadism. Science is very clear on this now. Low T, strong predictors of frailty. Who wants to get frail? Disability, cardiovascular events that negatively influence muscle mass. Shit, why are they brushing off low T? Yeah. So what today is all about is just showing you that we can get to where we want to be if we pay attention to the new research. And the Dr. J and I both, well, he's drummed it into me that we have to control for glucose and insulin first. And that's one of the easiest things to do, just simple changes. And I'm going to show you exactly what to do towards the end of this video. But to get to that place, we have to look at the consequences of the system, the advice they've given us that are causing us to be this dude over here. To hell with that. We're not going to put up with that anymore. So what we have to stop is the inappropriate taking of testosterone through this goddamn aromatase enzyme turning into estrogen, and we feel like shit. And there's serious consequences when this happens, and it doesn't have to happen. So listen to this from this research paper from Science Direct. Increased stress, appetite, foreign estrogens cyclically upregulate estrogen production. Aromatase upregulation increases estrogen concentrations. This is where it gets fucking serious and interesting, which in turn upregulates 11-beta hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase tenfold to create increased cortisol. Shit, that's not much good, which further upregulates aromatase ninefold and also increases appetite for poor quality carbohydrates, which make it all worse because we produce more goddamn insulin. And then that in turn upregulates aromatase another sixfold. So you can see the problem here. It is just a mess. So what we have to do is understand that we have to get our blood work checked. We have to move away from standard dumbass lab panels to optimal ones. And then we can keep the pathways turning and kick ass. So as a couple of examples here, if your trigs are up, standard panel says 150. Nope, needs to be under 100. If your C-reactive protein is 3 below, you good? No. 1 and below. Homocysteine up to 25? No. 7.2. Ferritin. I've even seen ferritin at 400 on some standard labs. If you go to your doctor and your ferritin's like 350, wow, that's bad. Truly bad. We need to get it between 30 and 70, maybe 100 at an upper limit. And then insulin, this is a joke. This is the biggest problem because it's driving all of that inflammation, all of it. Standard lab, 2.6 to 29, 24.9. And it should be between 2 and 5. I had mine checked on Monday. It is now Saturday, and my fasting insulin was 3. I'm in the butter zone. You can get to that place. So the big problem with low T is it's driving all that, right? Low testosterone, metabolic syndrome, erectile dysfunction. I don't want that. Cardiovascular disease. You've got increased cytokines, leptin resistance. So you're hungry all the time. You've got more inflammation. You've got low adiponectin. And adiponectin is a powerful fat loss hormone. Then you've got insulin resistance. This all goes hand in hand with low T. And the system brushes it off, says no big deal. It is a big deal. So linked below, I've got a private community group that I'll show you how to get all this right. Where to go, the right blood labs, all of that. If you're interested, the link is below. So low testosterone, there's a shit ton of research on it. This pristine publication from Nature, sexual and non-sexual symptoms of testosterone deficiency negatively affect the quality of your life and cause considerable general health concerns. So this is a mess. I mean, if you feel any of this is what's happened with your low T. Decreased energy and vitality, well-being and motivation to get shit done. Then you've got diminished physical and work performance. There goes your cognition. Increased mood, feeling sad and blue, impaired cognition, increased sleepiness and fatigue. Then you've also got increased waist circumference, reduced ball sack, your testes shrink. And over here, your beard doesn't grow, you get man boobs and your libido tanks. The hell with that. So right here, let's just have a look again at how testosterone is made and what we need to start to do to get it back in optimal ranges. So where should estrogen be? What are healthy levels? Dr. J, listen.
So our natural estrogen is about 20 for men, 20 nanograms per liter. And again, like
20 nanograms per liter, but there's a caveat. All right. So anywhere from say 15 to 30, or maybe even 40, maybe 50. But if you've got bad estrogen genetics, you have to work really hard to get it much lower than that. So I'll play this video.
Good testosterone genes.
Yep.
Bad estrogen genes, though.
Okay.
So
yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is another one of those sections. Estrogen is a hot spot, and gut section is a hot spot here. So
Okay. So your genes can play into it
tough to
too.
put on muscle mass. It's tough to bulk up, because he's fighting a lot of estrogen, and most of these genes basically say, yeah,
Hard to bulk up, all of those things. So two important points here, there, and how testosterone is made. So inside our brain, we've got a pulse generator. 2 to 3 hours, the brain does a system check. And if it can make testosterone, the brain, right here, releases LH into the bloodstream. LH makes its way to the ball sack to make T. Beautiful. Now, this other important point here, they got healthy men and they got a big pharma drug and they blocked aromatase. Guess what happened? Two big things. The LH pulse frequency went up, so more pulses, more testosterone, more testosterone. Then you got the pulse amplitude, some more LH to make more testosterone. So there's no reason why we can't get this right, even if you've got bad estrogen genetics. Now, towards the end, I'll unpack the 15 things that are taking all of your androgens through aromatase turning into estrogen. But we have to just have a look at a couple of things before we get to that place, because I want to give you I want to weaponize you to want to get this right, because you can. The system is shortchanging you. So the consequences with upregulation of aromatase here is that your prostate turns to shit, man boobs, obesity, atherosclerosis, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, erectile dysfunction, and prostate cancer. Damn, all of that's happening. So what we want to do, instead of letting that happen, healthy levels of cholesterol in the testes, and instead of going through aromatase here, we wanted to go to testosterone and then down here to dihydrotestosterone. Now, dihydro is a powerful hormone like testosterone, and it has a 2 to 5 times higher binding affinity to the androgen receptor, and it's up to 10 times more potent. So think about that. We're biasing it to go here, which is going to lower testosterone, but we need optimal testosterone, and it to come down here to dihydro. So it's like a magic trick to feeling like the man you were born to be. So it all comes down to blood sugar and controlling for insulin. So on this research paper here, the Leydig cells, which is your ball sack, primarily release luteinizing hormone, LH, which plays a major role in testosterone synthesis. It has been shown that hyperglycemia, elevated blood glucose, induces abnormal changes in the Leydig cells, leading to the change in the pituitary testicular axis, including decrease in LH. So we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we've got optimal testosterone. Now, just a couple of big standing blood labs you have to get right. Now, this one thing alone can screw up testosterone production and cause a lot of problems. So when you've got iron overload, when your ferritin is up too high, you've got infertility, hypogonadism. So it's literally shrinking your the factories, your testes. You've got low testosterone, you've got decreased libido. So we've got to make sure that we've got our ferritin levels in the right levels. And it's a pretty big deal. And the only thing you have to do if your ferritin is up high is donate blood. So lots of guys that we've helped, they've been around about 300. It takes about 3 blood donations to get it down to about, say, 60. Right? So it's going to take a bit of time. That could take about 6 months to get your ferritin in check before your testosterone comes up. So this is absolutely huge. Another thing we've got to have a great handle on is the liver. So the liver controls estrogen metabolism. So if our liver is working at a very high capacity, which it should, then you're going to metabolize those estrogens. And your estrogens should stay at about 15 to 30, and that's perfect. So 5 things: sulfation, glucuronation, this COMT gene, choline. So you've got to get adequate choline into your diet, and you've got to have these pathways going here: methylation, folate, transsulfuration. So you don't have to worry about that. All you have to think about is this: you need adequate vitamins and minerals and adequate protein, amino acids. Why? Because in phase 2 liver detox here, you need methionine, an amino acid, cysteine, an amino acid. You need taurine, an amino acid. You need glycine, an amino acid. You need glutamine, an amino acid. So if you've got a low protein diet, your liver slows down to a crawl. So the mainstream narrative about low protein diets, well, as you can see here, it's not going to optimize you, and that's the point. The next video, I'll unpack exactly how much protein these scientists say we need to make sure that we've got enough amino acids to do the work in the liver. So the next piece of the puzzle is homocysteine here. Now, if your homocysteine's up, it's a big problem. You've got inflammation, you've got brain problems, you've got cardiovascular issues as well, and there's a lot more going on here. 1,638 results in PubMed alone. And this is where it is a big problem with standard labs. They say that up to 25 is okay. No. Optimal is 7 and below. So you can see that's a big juxtaposition. And if you get your labs done, you say at 12, well, your inflammation is up. And as we now know, it's going to take your hard-earned T, turn it into E, and it's going to shut down the testosterone cold. So we've got to make sure that all of these labs are in functional optimal ranges. And just to show you here, this is going to get a little bit geeky, but this is the methylation pathway. Recall that I mentioned that we need methylation, folate, and transsulfuration working. So the amino acids, this is where protein comes in, is needed to keep methylation pathways open. And this is where it comes back to homocysteine here. So if you don't get enough amino acids, homocysteine can kind of build up, and your homocysteine can increase, and your liver doesn't work. So homocysteine over here comes on a transsulfuration. So this is a transsulfuration pathway. And the only point of me showing you this is that you need vitamins and minerals: NAD, magnesium again, zinc, molybdenum, copper, zinc, manganese, copper, iron, healthy iron levels, selenium, molybdenum, B1. You got NAD, FAD, OA, B1. So you can see that we need to have adequate vitamins and minerals and adequate protein. That's the point. Future videos, I'll show you exactly how to get that right. Adequate vitamins and minerals and adequate protein. So another special mention goes to growth hormone. And when you've got elevations in glucose, it shuts off growth hormone. When you've got elevations in insulin, it shuts off growth hormone. Why is that bad? Well, I learned this from Matthew Walker, sleep scientist, PhD. Without growth hormone replenishing the lining of the blood vessels called the endothelium, they're shorn and stripped of their integrity. Vessels rupture, heart attack and stroke become common. So elevations in insulin and glucose will shut that down. Now, growth hormone does a lot of other pretty important things. rips off body fat. It helps build muscle, but it also rejuvenates and repairs the organs, the brain, the heart, the testes, increase testicular size, intestines, kidneys, muscle, including smooth muscle of the penis, bone marrow, cartilage, liver, and the central nervous system. So with elevations in insulin and glucose, we're missing out on growth hormone. As you can now see, that's a pretty big deal. And one final thing before I start to show you exactly how to start getting optimal insulin and optimal blood glucose is this: sleep. It is huge. If you don't get enough sleep, you will wake up with insulin resistance. Now, this has been well elucidated in the research, but how much sleep do you need? Good question. Matthew Walker says between 8 and 9 hours per night. So the people that say hustle 6 to 7 hours is fine. No. If you want to be optimized for health, energy, muscle mass, fat loss, and testosterone, we have to pay attention to these hardworking scientists. Now, as he speaks about in his book here, after 10 hours of just 7 hours of sleep, the brain is as dysfunctional as it would be going without sleep for 24 hours. And he went on to say that you get used to this. You get used to this low energy. And it is huge. I can't emphasize enough how important sleep is. Now, mindset. It's one thing to get your body working for you, vitamins and minerals and proteins, and eating appropriate food for you. Mindset is absolutely key. Why is that? Because when you're in a negative mood, in just 2 to 3 minutes, you can raise cortisol twofold. So when cortisol is here, it actually stimulates testosterone production. When it's over here, this is what happens. Coming from human, I was really surprised to learn that it's not testosterone that makes you aggressive. No. As he says, and I'll quote what he said in that podcast, I want to repeat that. It is not testosterone itself that triggers aggression. It is testosterone aromatized into estrogen within the brain and binding to these estrogen receptor-containing neurons in the ventral medial hypothalamus that evokes aggression. So we got to keep calm and in control. So if you've got negative emotions like frustration, resentment, hostility, fear, and anxiety, we're over here, we're shutting down T, we're taking what little T we've got left through that aromatase enzyme turned to estrogen, we're shut down cold, we feel like garbage. So mindset is huge. And I'll speak about how to fix that in subsequent videos. And this is what we're missing out on when it comes to testosterone. So we need to be optimized for testosterone. Now, to be fair, testosterone isn't the key to success, but it just makes everything a lot fucking easier to drop the body fat, to pack on the muscle, to have energy, to kick ass in life and have courage. So as we now know, it has a primary anti-inflammatory effect. It rips off the body fat. And as I learned from Professor Sapolsky here, he's a legend in this space, about 5 decades of research. He says that when we get into a challenge response and we feel good, we want to do shit, testosterone increases. But if we get frustrated, just as you now know, we're taking what little T we've got left through aromatase, turning into estrogen. So we've got to rise to challenges and be like, fuck yeah, I'm going to get into this. I'm going to get this shit done. Because when we do that consistently, our mindset switches on and nothing can take us down. So all of those things there are the benefits of optimal testosterone production. So how do we start optimizing for blood glucose? Now, this is just one strategy, and I've got a couple more for you. And this one is significant, very significant. And this is just simply changing the order in which you eat your food. And that's it. This study was done with pre-diabetics, and their fasting insulin was around about 22. So it wasn't in this butter zone here of 2 to 5. But look at this. They had stable blood glucose, and they had much lower insulin here. So this green line here is what we want to focus in on. So what did they do? They ate their vegetables first, then their protein and their carbohydrates last. Stabilized blood glucose, even though they were pre-diabetic and they had much lower insulin. So if you continue to do this, you're a long step in the right direction. Now, the next thing that you can do is understand how glucose is taken out of the bloodstream and is used in the cells. So insulin will open up those transporters. When we move, that's right, when we exercise, that will happen. When we've got optimal testosterone and thyroid hormone, so the more testosterone you've got, paradoxically, the less insulin you need. So this research paper here, when we exercise, just steady state, it goes up twofold, those transporters. That's pretty good. But when you do high intensity, it goes up 100-fold. Very, very significant there. And they've also shown here in another study that the time that you exercise is pretty key too. So if you exercise later in the day, you've got more glucose, more insulin. If you exercise earlier in the day, you've got less glucose, less insulin. So this is at 45 minutes respectively. But if you just go for a walk, say 10 to 15 minutes post each meal that you eat, you've got marginally less glucose and insulin than what you would if you just did one big bout earlier in the day. So that's pretty cool. Now, what we also have to understand is something called the dawn effect, and I'll come back to that. Actually, I'll start there. So what we have to understand is what can glucose do in our body? Where is it stored? How do we use it? Well, there's three things that our body will do with it. Number one, we can use it. Number two, we can store it in the liver here. Number three, we can store it in the muscles. So think about it like this. If you're eating way too many carbohydrates and you're not eating your foods in the correct order, you'll basically have 100% saturation in the muscles and the liver, right? So that's not good. You're eating way too much carbohydrates for you. But let's just consider for a moment that you're eating enough carbohydrates in the liver and the muscles are saturated about 80%. That's exactly what we want to do. So the question now becomes, how the fuck do we do that? Quite simply, we check our blood glucose. So you can buy a blood glucometer from the chemist, or that you call it a drugstore in America. And as soon as you wake up, your blood glucose should be 85 in America and below, or in Australia, 4.7 and below. So if it is there, beautiful. That's optimal blood glucose. Now, the next time you should check it is about 20 minutes before you eat your first meal. And if it's again at 4.7 or 85 and below, you're good. The final time that you should check it is 2 hours after you eat your last meal. Now, if you're storing it, if you've got enough storage in the muscles or liver, again, it should be back down to 4.7 or 85 and below. And if you follow that pattern, then you have got optimized blood glucose. Now, the dawn effect, basically cortisol comes up in the early part of the day for the first 4 hours. Now, this is key. When cortisol comes up, it makes us insulin resistant, okay? That is key to understand. So if we don't exercise in the early part of the day, blood glucose will rise and rise and rise. It can get out of control. Now, the important thing about blood glucose is if it's too high, it shuts down testosterone production. It'll start taking what little T you've got and turning it into estrogen. So I believe that it is absolutely key to exercise for at least 10 to 15 minutes in the beginning part of the day, if you can. And if you do that, you're going to optimize blood glucose for the rest of the day. So just to recap this, check your blood glucose upon waking and exercise as soon as you can to optimize blood glucose. Then check it again 20 minutes before you have your first meal and 2 hours after you have your last meal. And if those are your blood glucose levels, you're good. So that is how we're going to start to optimize insulin and blood glucose. Now, if you want to know more about the blood panels, I've got a link below. and you can join the community there, and I'll show you exactly what you need to do, where you need to go, and how to get your blood panels optimized. Because as I've spoken about in previous videos, and coming from my advisor, Dr. J said to me, it's surprising how little testosterone comes down as we age if we optimize our health. And as Huberman has said on a few podcasts, there are men in their 90s, fucking 90s, that are making as much testosterone and dihydrotestosterone testosterone as they were in their 20s. So we can get to that place. Now, what are optimal testosterone levels? Well, this is Dr. J, 5-year PhD in hormones.
And my age, I'm 49, so I guess mine should be around about 800 if I'm correct.
Yeah, the most if you get below 500, I think it's a big problem. Better fix it, like immediately.
All right. So 500 is about 20 in Australia. So if you get your testosterone at those levels, you're pretty safe. All right. You don't need super high levels. And as you can see on this research paper here, testosterone has been plummeting ever since 1940. Now, this 87, 89, for a man my age, and I'm 52 this year, it was around about, say, 550 to 500, around about that ballpark. Now, fast forward to 2002, 2004, we're down around about 400. Jesus Christ. And look here, when our testosterone was 500 and above, we were relatively lean, the percentage of obese adults in America. Now, fast forward to 2018, we're sick, we're fat, we're tired, we're overweight. Our testosterone has been plummeting. So you can fix this mess. All right, legends. So it really comes down to, where do you want to be at this era? Do you want to be somewhere down here, like feeling like shit? Or do you want to be in this butter zone here, feeling great? It really comes down to that. So just to unpack what we've done so far in this video series, they're all linked below. We've talked about how the system is busted and that we need to look at the new science. And the first thing we have to do, as I've mentioned it on this video itself, we have to get a comprehensive metabolic blood panel. More information below. Then I've done another video here about how to really start to optimize testosterone. This video here was all about the omega index, and the previous video to this one was all about not one diet fits all. So if you haven't watched any of those videos, they're all linked below, because it really comes down to this, legends. Who do you want to be? What man do you want to be? Do you want to be this legend here, optimized with energy, the muscle mass, all of that? Or do you want to be this person here? If you want the muscle mass and you're this person here, you want to be lean, is it even going to be possible? Right? That's the bottom line. So if you got any questions, drop them in the comments below, and I will see you on the next video.